These are without a doubt two of the best Bluetooth headphones you can buy right now, and in many categories, they're number 1 and number 2 in the industry, with great active noise cancellation, great sound quality, microphones. Across the board, these are flagship headphones among a sea of flagship headphones. But which one's actually the best to buy? Of course, the headphones I'm talking about are the very popular Bose QuietComfort Ultra headphones, which many people have loved for about the past year, and the brand new Sony WH-1000X Mark VI headphones, here to take the throne as the best Bluetooth headphones of 2025. So this video is going to be a brutal head-to-head comparison between these headphones as we go shot for shot testing ANC and microphone and sound quality and everything else that I think you need to know when deciding between these headphones, because in a sea of great headphones, these are truly among the best. Like I said, number 1 and number 2 in many categories out there. So let's get started with what I would say is probably the most exciting category with these headphones. A lot of people are traveling with these. Which one has better active noise cancellation? And depending on where you look on the internet, you're going to see different answers. But I think that's because most people view ANC as a one-dimensional thing, like which one's more powerful. But realistically, it depends on which frequencies you're blocking. So I do this test where I'll play a sound at a set distance away, and I'll turn that volume up until the headphones are no longer able to block it. And I record that volume, and that is essentially how I can determine which pair of headphones is better at ANC. So we started off with the sound of a jet, lower booming frequency. This is what a lot of headphones are really trying to block. The Sony's went up to 58.5, while the Bose went up to 59.4. So about 1 decibel more with the Bose, and so for those lower frequencies, the Bose headphones are still marginally better. But if you're trying to block other sounds like people talking, higher voices, like think pots and pans banging around, whatever, something like that that is not like an HVAC system or a low droning sound, well, it's a very different style of ANC. And in that situation, the Sony headphones actually did a measurably better job, blocking up to 43.9 decibels compared to 41.4 on the Bose. In a silent environment then, this is another dimension that I think a lot of people overlook. Which one has the more clean silence? And I would say out of both of them, they obviously do an excellent job of not having a lot of static, not having a lot of artifacts, but Sony does sound marginally cleaner here with slightly less hissing or white noise. So concluding the ANC comparison, it depends on what you're trying to block. They both do a great job, but because Sony was very close to Bose in the low frequencies, but significantly better than Bose in the higher frequencies, I have to say the X Mark VI headphones, in my opinion, would be my personal pick for slightly better active noise cancellation. As far as transparency goes, this is a slightly different story here. So Bose has a great feature called ActiveSense, where if you have a transparency mode on with either of these headphones, and then a really loud sound happens, well, the Bose headphones are going to reduce that quite a bit. This is something we saw on the AirPods as well, and this is something that does not exist on Sony, at least right now. In settings, you can have it set up to switch between ANC and transparency, but it doesn't work quite the same as ActiveSense on Bose. As far as the sound goes with transparency, Sony sounds very natural, although slightly muffled and definitely a little bit quieter than your actual ambient sound, whereas Bose sounds a little bit more natural and almost the same volume. Like taking them on and off, it's very easy to forget you even have the headphones on. As far as white noise goes, because this is a very similar engine to ANC, Sony is also a little bit cleaner here with noticeably less white noise. Bose has really just the slightest white noise, almost imperceivable, honestly, but definitely more than Sony when you compare them side by side. Now, let's get into a microphone test. I think this is very interesting because Sony's been talking about their new chip on here and their new microphones, having a ton of microphones on here. Let's see if that actually makes a difference, or if they end up being way overcompressed. All right, so this is an indoor test with the Bose QuietComfort Ultra headphones microphone. If I was on a call with you indoors, it would sound something like this. All right, this is an indoor test with the Sony WH-1000X Mark VI headphones indoors, so this is probably as easy as it's going to get, but if I was on a phone call, it would sound something like this. Now, let's go outside and see how these block out ambient sounds. All right, now these are the Bose headphones, again, with a lot of traffic behind me, a lot of noise here. We'll see which one does better with compression. Sony really did talk about their extra microphones on there and their new processor, but does it actually make a difference here? All right, now these are the Bose headphones, again, with a lot of traffic behind me, a lot of noise here. We'll see which one does better with compression. Sony really did talk about their extra microphones on there and their new processor, but does it actually make a difference here? So now this is the reference video. Clearly there is a lot of noise behind me, and phone calls are tough in this environment. Now, we've covered a lot of like very technical aspects of these headphones. Getting into more of a subjective one right now, being fit and comfort. I'm gonna try to keep this as objective as possible and show you the differences between them, but ultimately, after wearing them, I can tell you which one feels more comfortable in my opinion. So looking at them side by side, the Bose headphones kind of move around a lot more. They are very jiggly here. They have a very loose hinge, and they have deeper ear cups as well. The Sony headphones, as you can see, are a little bit more sturdy looking. They don't really wiggle around much, but they do still rotate quite a bit, so they're very adaptable to any head. You can see the band is narrower on the Bose headphones, which means they may be better for smaller heads. The Sony headphones actually got wider in this generation. I find them very comfortable. They don't have an overbearing clamping force, but smaller heads might find that these fall off their head a little bit too easily. But when actually wearing them, I find the shallower cups on the Sony headphones to be slightly less comfortable. They also tend to get a little bit hotter, and if it's humid out, the texture or that material that they used feels, I don't want to say stickier, but like you can tell it's humid outside when you're wearing these. Whereas the Bose headphones, very light, very comfortable, and as far as the security goes, wearing them on your head because they have those deeper ear cups, these tend to stay on a little bit better if you're moving around a lot. So as far as comfort, fit, and security go, they're both great, but Bose, I think, easily takes the win in this category. As far as the design goes, moving on to another category here, they finally both fold. Sony made a nice update this year, allowing these to fold, and they fold in their case. We'll talk about the case in a second. That's a big difference here. But the Sony headphones also come in 3 different colors, which is black, white, and midnight blue. I personally really like the midnight blue one, and Bose, pretty similarly, comes in black, white, lunar blue. Well, not midnight blue, big difference there. But they do come in this really sick, deep plum color. I'll show you just online. I don't have them, unfortunately, but I think they look absolutely awesome. So as far as the aesthetics go between these, you guys can leave a comment and let me know which one you think looks better. I do appreciate that Sony doesn't put their logo on the outside like the Bose headphones do, but hey, which ones do you think actually look better? Leave a comment and let me know. Now, these both have hard shell cases. Many headphones out there don't come with hard shell cases. This is good, so it protects your headphones a little bit more. It also gives you space to store like a charging cable, which it does come with, and an audio cable, which it also comes with. But there is a pretty fundamental difference. Even though they're similarly sized, the Bose headphone case has a zipper on it. The Sony headphone case does not. So they redesigned it this year to not need a zipper. And this is one of those things that when I first saw it, I just instantly was like, this is so much better. I didn't realize how much more convenient this is to not have to unzip all the way around, especially if you only have one hand free. You could just open it up with one hand very easily, and it doesn't come open in my bag at all. Like, it really stays together well, and I think they did a great job of that design. Also, by the way, if you decide which one you want to get at any point in this video, I do have affiliate links down below. They help to support the channel, and they cost absolutely nothing to you. So consider using those if you want to make a purchase, or if you just want to check out the price and the colorways. Now, this category I think is very, very interesting. The controls between these headphones. Sony has a ton of controls. You can do anything with these headphones. So they have 2 buttons, and the 2 buttons, unlike the Bose 2 buttons, are very distinctly different. They have a kind of recessed, round power button, and they have a protruding, long slot-style noise cancellation button. So you're never gonna mix up the buttons. You know exactly which one's which. You also have 2 axis swipes, so up, down, left, right, or up, down, forward, back, for like skipping tracks and changing the volume. Super intuitive. You can also tap and hold. You can double tap it. You can nod or shake, so that's gonna like answer and reject calls. And you have the palm options. So if you're wearing the headphones and you just palm it like this, it'll turn on transparency, it'll turn your music way down, and you can hear an announcement on a plane or something like that. Bose, on the other hand, I think this is one of the biggest shortcomings of these headphones. So the positive, I really like their volume slider. There's this little ridge there, and it sits in a great spot. You can just slide your thumb up and down to control the volume. You can also tap and hold that for a little shortcut, maybe to open Spotify, for example. But the other controls are just those 2 buttons. The higher up one in the back is going to be your playback control, so press it once, twice, whatever. And then the bottom one is going to be pairing or power. But like I said, they really feel the same. It's easy to mix those up. And it also takes an extra second to power on these headphones. So when you press that power button, if you press and hold it and wait for the sound, you held it for too long and they're gonna turn off. But if you have to hold it for like 1 second and then wait, and you think you didn't get it, but then maybe 2 seconds later, it finally makes that sound as it powers on. So kind of a weird quirk with the Bose headphones there. And of course, the sound quality with these headphones, starting off with the spec side of it and then getting into the subjective sound analysis. The Bose headphones have Snapdragon sound, so that should give you really high resolution codecs, but Snapdragon sound, as much as I really like Qualcomm and Snapdragon, I have to say it's a little bit confusing. It doesn't work with all phones out there. You might think, oh, I have a Snapdragon chip in my phone, it works with Snapdragon sound. That's not necessarily true. So there are many Android phones out there that have a Snapdragon chip and just won't be able to capitalize on the high resolution codecs on the Bose headphones. Sony, on the other hand, uses SBC, AAC, LC3, and LDAC. LDAC is incredibly common on a lot of phones out there, so high-res codec is going to work on almost every Android phone. Obviously, if you're using an iPhone, you're missing out. You're not going to get any high-res codecs on any headphones, including AirPods, I mean, that's a personal choice there. But if you want to listen to non-Bluetooth audio, they do both have an audio port. It's 3.5 millimeters on the Sony, so common cable, very nice to see that. On Bose, it is a slightly smaller port there, but in the case, it comes with a cable. Unfortunately, you will have to buy probably an adapter if you want to use a different cable or a longer cable or anything like that. Neither one of these has USB Type-C playback. I really wish they would, so you could charge them and plug them into your laptop at the same time. I think that would just be such a nice feature, but Sony does finally have playback while charging, so you can plug these into a wall or your laptop or whatever and connect by Bluetooth. That's positive. But getting into the actual sound when you're listening, Bose is a little bit bassy, but otherwise pretty nice. Like, it just sounds pretty consistent across the board. They do sound like you're slightly further away from the music compared to the Sony headphones. And in my opinion, the Sony headphones sound, first of all, way better than previous generations, even though they already sounded good in the past, but perhaps a little bit more of a U-shaped frequency response compared to the Bose, so slightly more of a lift on the highs, and of course the lows, they both have a similar lift, but I think Sony has a lift for a longer frequency, so some of the lower mids also are a little more elevated on the Sonys. And while the Sony headphones are relatively articulate, I have to say that the lift on the highs does give you a perception of more clarity with those nice crisp highs. And so I think a lot of people listening to these side by side are probably going to prefer the Sonys in terms of audio quality. I think I personally do as well, partially because they have the higher resolution codecs on more devices. So like if you're using a Samsung phone, for example, you will be able to use LDAC on Sony, but both of these really do have excellent sound quality, and I think listening to either one of them, you're not getting that classic muddy experience you might be used to with a lot of the, honestly, just a lot of the headphones on the market. If you want to know more about the sound quality on either one of these, though, I do have full reviews on both of them. I'll have those linked down below and on the end card, so I really dig deeper into the audio analysis on those. Now, getting into the battery life of these headphones, there is definitely an advantage here with the Sonys, even though they both have a claimed 30 hours of playback with active noise cancellation on. And the difference is that Sony is actually able to turn ANC off, and you get, I believe, 40 hours of playback when you have no ANC. So if you need to stretch the battery, you definitely could do that. Bose, on the other hand, kind of has always done this on their headphones and their earbuds, where they just have the engine running all the time. So you can't turn ANC off. Like, you can make it neutral so it's halfway between transparency and ANC, but it's still running that same engine, so you're not going to be getting that additional battery life you get on Sony. As far as features go, like I said, neither have USB Type-C playback, neither have NFC pairing. That's a thing of the past, though. Nobody uses that because they have fast pair now. Sony does have a speak to chat feature, which I think is really quite nice. So if you're wearing them, you just start talking, it'll turn your volume way down, turn on transparency, and you can have a conversation with, I don't know, if you're at like a Starbucks and somebody says, hey, can I take this chair? You can talk without taking your headphones off. Sony also has this really cool background music feature is what they call it. So if you don't want to be at a Starbucks and you want to be at your home, but sound like you're at Starbucks, maybe you just like that ambient music, you can do that. So it just plays your music and it feels like it's in the entire room around you. It's a weird thing to kind of explain, but when you try it, I think it's pretty cool. It's not something I normally use, but it's a cool feature that does exist, and it's pretty well executed. Sony also has DSEE Extreme, which kind of upscales or upres some audio files, so it should potentially sound better even if they're lower quality audio. Bose has, of course, their modes, so you can toggle between like ambient mode, you can set up running mode, for example, and that way you're easily able to go back to kind of preset settings based on what you're doing. Sony has something similar that's based on the GPS or just your movement. So if you're walking around, if you're sitting at your office, if you're sitting at home, you can have different settings for that. They're just executed slightly differently between these. Both have some form of 360 audio. Sony has true multi-point, which will connect to my phone and my laptop, and if I'm listening to music on my laptop and I get a call, it'll automatically switch to my phone. Whereas Bose, on the other hand, you have to press the power button, and that'll switch between the devices to which it's connected. So Sony also recently redesigned their app. I think it looks really quite good. It shows you what codec you're using, the battery level, it shows you your headphones, and you can actually edit what this is going to look like on the bottom by tapping edit. So whatever cards you think really make the most sense there. When you dig into anything, it very quickly turns into the old Sony app. So for example, if I tap on ambient sound control, you can see it just switches over to the old app right here. So you've got 3 tabs there. You've got the sound, which you can control a lot of things there. You've got system, tons and tons of things. You can customize how they're actually, when you press the button twice, what it's doing. So like I said, Spotify, you can open that, for example. We have head gesture, as I mentioned before. You can toggle this on and off. So that's answering or rejecting phone calls. Let's say do not experience that. And just like a ton of other things you can really change on here. Services will connect to like Amazon and Spotify and stuff like that. So you can go and just instantly play your most recent podcast or playlist or whatever you're listening to. So that's the Sony app. If you go to Scene, that also, it kind of, like I said, changes based on what you're doing. Pretty cool that that exists. Not something I use particularly often, but the Sony app has a ton of features. Now the Bose app, very clean, very minimal. They're trying to sell you a product in the middle. I don't like that. But otherwise, you can see you can change the volume. You've got modes, which you can create your own one, or as I said, just have like a running mode, and it'll have your transparency versus ANC. It'll have your 360 audio kind of mode set up. We have source, so you can toggle between different devices to which it's connected. The Bose headphones actually do have multi-point connectivity. Both headphones have multi-point connectivity, but you can turn that on or off in the app on the Bose app. Bose also allows you to control it by just tapping on the button on the bottom, and that will switch between different devices. There's also immersive audio. You can turn that on or off. Bose does a really good job of that, I have to say. It's just not really my cup of tea. Great for like movies and stuff, but I don't really use it much with music. And then the shortcut, like I said, on that slider on the back, if you want to like open Spotify is what I'm doing with that. And then of course, the price difference between these. Well, at the time of filming this video, I checked Bose and Sony's websites, and they are both $449. I'll have links down below in case there are any sales. I think the Bose are a little bit older, so more likely to be on sale right now. It's no small chunk of change, but I have to say, these are really great headphones. Like I said, number 1 and number 2 in many categories out there. I will be making, though, a full comparison between these, actually both of these, as well as 3 other pairs of headphones. Leave a comment down below and let me know which headphones I should compare them to. I've got some ideas of what I want to compare them to, but I'm interested to see more votes for different headphones. Might actually get your headphones or the ones you want to see pushed into that video. But overall, between these two headphones, which is the best? I mean, they both go neck and neck for ANC, for audio quality, for microphone quality, things like that. But ultimately, it's going to come down to your own personal preference. Do you care more about the comfort and the fit? In which case, the Bose headphones, I think, feel lighter, feel more comfortable. The deeper ear cups mean they get less hot as well. Those could be the win for you. But if you care a lot more about the features that Sony brings to the table, then hey, the Sony headphones are absolutely awesome. But leave a comment as well and let me know which of these you like best based on this comparison. Thanks for watching. I'm Mike O'Brien, and I'll see you in that full comparison. I'm so excited for that video.